I'm Glenn McGuinness, and this is Outburst. On the program, are you concerned about unity issues between the federal government and the provinces?
I mean, being from Sask, we feel it, right?
But I hope that we stay together as a nation.
I think that we're in a tense time right now, especially in the past couple of years.
I think we need to get things together.
But first, after a roughly 6-week break, parliamentarians are back in town and ready to get down to business. Some of the topics, of course, in the forefront will be healthcare and the economy. And the Prime Minister has stated his government is still in delivery mode to make good on all those election promises. So we took to the streets to ask people what they would like to see from our federal politicians now that things are up and running once again. Our question: what are you hoping Parliament will accomplish in 2023?
2023, I hope we get the medical care system straightened away. 2023. I think that would be Canadians' main concern.
I hope that they would demonstrate that they are in charge of the country and that they will listen to the problems relating to climate change.
Equalization of income, because a lot of people who on, say, a fixed income struggling in terms of prices that have been happening in the past few months, past few years. And it's hard for a lot of people, so that is one thing that I hope the government looks at.
Maybe just like a return to normalcy. There's been a lot of focus on getting through the pandemic, shoring up the economy. If we could just sort of find our footing on sort of a go forward plan, that would be great.
Less gun violence, less crime overall. I think across Canada there's a big drug issue, a lot of overdoses and a serious mental health crisis. And I think that the government needs to tackle more. Huge problems with that, I think. And I think that the government should figure out what's the best option to make sure that we have less of that.
Well, I'd like for us to really be there for the provinces as we get through, because healthcare in all the provinces are out of control, and I think that needs to be fully addressed, because without healthcare, you got no workforce, you got just too much expenses going out.
Hopefully inflation starts to slow down maybe a little bit, and we can kind of get back to a lower cost of living.
More clarity in terms of what's actually going on in our province and our country in terms of COVID-19 and other diseases and health issues, and really just helping small businesses get back on track.
Hopefully uniting the country. There seems to be a lot of division. So like even at work here, I'm talking to my friends and we all got differing opinions on same issues. So hopefully we can all get aligned in the next 12 months.
How about if they like to reduce taxes? Because we're being taxed to the hilt, federal and provincially.
Rent and all that. And in bigger cities, I noticed that it's been going up like crazy in the past months, years. So that's definitely a change I think that we all like to see.
So something that is important to me personally is more funding for research in Canada. So that comes for graduate students and postdocs. They're criminally underfunded here in Canada. They're basically forced to live on salaries that are below the poverty line almost. And these are people that are highly desired experts in their field, and we're not promoting science properly in Canada.
I want to see them rebuild Canada's defence capability. Is what I'd really like to see start happening. It's pretty obvious from what's happening in Europe, in Ukraine, that Canada's fallen behind, as of other countries. And I guess the other thing is healthcare. We seem to have fallen behind with that too. We're not keeping up with what people's expectations are in terms of speed and access to service. So
I still think we have a lot of work to do in terms of reconciliation with Indigenous peoples. As an educator myself, there's always more money that can go into education. Don't get me wrong, the government spends a lot of money, but teachers' voices want to be heard, and maybe that money can get better spent, not necessarily just throw more of it at us. And just from a geopolitical standpoint, it's important to me that Canada continue to strengthen its ties with our allies and partners around the world. It seems now that the Trump era is over, the United States and other countries are moving towards, certainly what happened in Ukraine showed that we are closer than ever with our geopolitical allies. And I think that that's important to remain, even though Canada is a big nation territorially, we're small population economic. So we need to be closer with our friends.
There's a large laundry list for them. I think for me, supporting the middle class is important. And I think we've gone through a very rough time over the last few years. And I think there has been support there. However, I do think that the middle class is shrinking, and I do think that they need a little more support.
I'm a student, so, stuff like housing, cheaper food, stuff like that's important to students. I know for sure for me, but, I would assume for other students as well.
More access and equal opportunities for our Indigenous communities, clean drinking water, education rights, equal employment opportunities.
Support the business community, support individuals through 2023, especially if we expect a recession in the near term, and then steer the economy into long-term prosperity. So I guess financial prudence where it matters, but supporting Canadians at large when it matters.
And with the return of Parliament also means the resumption of question period. Its purpose, of course, is to debate the issues important to Canadians. But what might happen, according to some, is the waters being muddied through partisan politics, which could get in the way of progress brought on by constructive dialogue. So we sent our cameras out to ask people if question period is getting the job done. Our question: do you feel question period serves its purpose?
Oh yes. You got to make the both federal and provincial governments accountable for what they're doing.
I don't know. It seems scripted. Everybody's kind of asking the same questions, that sort of thing. But it's there. It's a resource if you want to listen to it.
I feel like a lot of the time, it's usually ends up in a bit of a bickering match, and solutions don't get resolved. I mean, there's a very frequent one with Trudeau on gun violence, and it was just going back and forth, circling around and around and around, and nothing got resolved in that matter.
Honestly, what I've been seeing lately, I don't think it does. Seems like a bunch of grown children just bickering, to me at least. But then again, I'm not a professional, but seems like haven't been accomplishing much, if I had to say.
Well, yeah, that's so-called democracy, right? Parliamentary democracy. You gotta have, you gotta allow the opposition to get up and question the government on stuff. It's just when they get kind of childish and they get extreme, or like anybody, they start acting like children, pounding on the desk and won't let anybody talk, all that kind of stuff. But that's part of, I suppose, I don't like it, but I think that's part of the theater of politics, to get angry and safely have their say there where they can't be prosecuted inside the house, right? I think that's part of it, that freedom. They want that freedom to be able to do that.
On a personal level, as soon as they televised question period, all of a sudden everyone's an actor. So I like meat and potato politicians, and all parties have them.
I think it would serve its purpose if they didn't act like children during question period, and answers were given appropriately and succinctly, as opposed to argumentative back and forth.
And it just seems like questions aren't actually being answered. They're being skirted around from what I've seen. So I can't really, speak to its effectiveness, but I'd say probably not.
Yeah. A lot of the times it just seems like some of these people like the sound of their own voice and not necessarily care about what they're actually talking about.
I believe that it does, because it provides me as a Canadian with information that I can use when I'm deciding what I want to do at election time for voting. But it also gives me information that I can use when I contact my member of parliament.
I think it's a great arena for discussion. I just wish that it was done a bit more respect. Not shouting and being kind of immature. I think that is not a great look for us on an international stage. But I think overall the discussion needs to happen, and that's where it should happen.
The trouble is I only see clips online when things get escalated and heated on the floor of the House of Commons. I feel like there are probably a lot of portions that are more substantive that just don't get airtime and that we don't end up seeing on the news.
For the value of sharing ideas, yes, it's valid. For the value of actually getting
policy changed, a policy moved. It's a little lacking and needs a little bit of a revamp.
I think it has a lot of value, especially because, I mean, that's the whole point of having an opposition. We currently have a minority government, and it's important that, you know, we see this collaboration and that there's a lot of things they're not going to agree on and that they have to make concessions if they want to represent the majority of Canadians. So at the very least, it's important that, because that's a time when a lot of backbenchers or smaller MPs will get a chance to make their voices heard, and I think that's really crucial.
Well, absolutely. I think just communication in general serves its purpose. So whether it's whether you're going in the right direction or whether you're opposites, I mean, I think it can only bring good. And yeah, I do think that it is somewhat necessary.
The question period seems to be free for all. That has people shouting and contradicting each other. It originally was supposed to be for a good purpose, but I'm afraid it's getting a little bit out of hand.
Well, if it does end up being productive, then I think that's a good thing. And even if it isn't, it's good to talk about problems. And so even if it isn't like resolved immediately, at least it's brought up so that people do end up thinking about it.
No. Why not? There's too much of selfish, in my opinion. Like some of the politicians are trying to glorify themselves, and the needs of the citizens come second. And sometimes I think there's no honesty. There's not enough honesty and truthfulness in some of our politicians on all sides.
No.
Why not?
Because I just don't think it really matters if nobody's going to take the time to ask the questions that actually matter, or moreover, just use that time to voice their opinions, just to have it out there, but to not have it be addressed at all. So I don't see any point.
No, I feel like there's just a lot of like avoiding actually answering the question and trying to just get sound bites from both sides, and it's kind of lost its meaning.
It depends, because I've seen a lot of Parliament. It turns into more like accusations. It's not as fruitful in the debates. It's more just, you know, accusing one of the other. It doesn't really help.
Well, I think it challenges the Prime Minister and the party, but I think it's a whole bunch of posing, and it's trying to show that I'm doing my stuff and I'm going to try and challenge you, and it's not necessarily constructive in what it's doing.
Willie O'Ree was the first black player in the NHL. In which Canadian city was he born? Saskatoon, Fredericton, or Winnipeg? Saskatoon, Fredericton, or Winnipeg?
Fredericton.
Winnipeg?
I'll go with the second one.
Winnipeg.
Yeah, Winnipeg sounds good.
I say Winnipeg.
Me too.
I have no idea. I'm gonna guess Fredericton.
Fredericton.
It is Fredericton.
There you go.
I knew you were smart. Born in Fredericton, New Brunswick in 1935, Willie O'Ree broke the color barrier when he became the first black player in the National Hockey League. His first game took place on January 28, 1958 with the Boston Bruins. He almost didn't make it to the big leagues. O'Ree suffered permanent damage to his right eye when he was hit by a puck 2 years earlier and decided he could not tell anyone about the injury if he wanted to play in the NHL. Willie O'Ree would go on to play 45 NHL games with a total of 4 career goals and 10 assists, also making O'Ree the first black player to score an NHL goal during the 1960-61 season. Following his NHL career, Willie O'Ree became one of the great ambassadors for the game of hockey with his dedication to youth development and mentoring young hockey players from different racial backgrounds. He was awarded the Order of New Brunswick, the Order of Canada, inducted in the Hockey Hall of Fame as a builder, and most recently, President Joe Biden signed into law a bill which will present Willie O'Ree with a Congressional Gold Medal, the highest civilian honor in the U.S., joining the ranks of fellow pioneers Rosa Parks, Jackie Robinson, and Martin Luther King Jr. O'Ree will become the first NHL player to receive the medal in its nearly 250-year history. tensions between the federal government and the provinces has long existed in this country, no matter who's in power on either side. Lately, Canadians have been watching Alberta and Saskatchewan striving to assert their autonomy, with Quebec, of course, still in the fray. We sent our cameras out to ask people their thoughts on federal-provincial relations. Our question: are you concerned about unity issues between the federal government and the provinces?
Yeah, absolutely. I think everybody is. But again, I think it's just being brought on by a few out there. I won't go into which province and whatever province is causing the turmoil. But I think again, like question period, if everybody just relaxed and started acting like grown-ups and went to the table and started a conversation about what's going on right now in the world and how it's affecting what's going on in Canada, I think maybe they could get themselves in a better situation.
I mean, being from Sask, we feel it, right? Like our provincial government doesn't get along with the federal government necessarily. So, I mean, we definitely can understand that. I'm concerned about it, but I'm not a very political person, so there's nothing really that I can contribute to that conversation necessarily.
Yeah, I think each province has their own needs that are not the same across the board, and we're a huge country, so I think the federal government really needs to learn how to compromise and understand that there are differences, cultural, geographic, and they need to be taken into account, and it's not a one-size-fits-all for every group of people geographically.
I am, because we need unity in this country. We're a free country. We have a lot to offer many different countries. And again, it's coming down to the fact that the current Liberal Party and how it's led isn't taking into consideration the provincial leaders and their needs and what they have going on as well. And unless we can get them both aligned, nothing's going to happen. And it will eventually, not in the near future, but will eventually break the country apart.
I mean, these have been problems since Confederation. I mean, a lot of people forget that the original separatist was Nova Scotia. Like, there's always been, harmony and dissonance between provinces. It's just an inevitability. It's going to rise and fall, and the federal government does have, I think, a responsibility to make, extensions as representatives of the entire nation to the smaller provinces. But the provinces also have to be willing to make concessions as well, because they collectively make up, our country. So it's always going to happen, and there has to be continuing dialogue, and there will be bumps along the way. And I just think it's something they have to continue to work on.
Well, Canada is a dominion. We are a collection of people, and I think it's important that our federal politicians can speak with our provincial politicians, and it's important that they meet, have an opportunity to come to agreements on important issues.
Well, I probably have to say yes, but just unity in general, right? Out of everyone. I think that we're in a tense time right now, especially in the past couple of years. Not that we haven't always been, but specifically now. And I think that it's important that we just pull together and we go towards the same direction, and just for the best of for all Canadians and their safety and whatnot.
I am concerned. I think it's important for Canada to stay united. And unfortunately, I sense that there is a bit of posturing by some of the provinces that is totally unnecessary, and it should get together and on the same page, and we need to be united as a country.
Not that much. Not that, because I think federal and provincial, the voices are there, and it's the same on both sides of the coin. It's the federal, municipal. The parties are the same, whether it's provincial or federal. So the voices are there, and the voices are being presented. So I don't think that's much of a priority, in my opinion.
I think it's probably like a symptom of a bigger problem where politics is just becoming more polarizing across all demographics. It's obviously a concern, but I don't think just addressing the division between the provincial and the federal governments is actually going to really solve the bigger issue of people becoming more sort of set in their ways and not willing to sort of reach across the aisle and find a compromise that works for everyone.
It's always in the back of mind. There's some provinces that feel they're not getting dealt with fairly all the time. And the first step is, if you're not going to play fair with me, we're going to leave. So there's always that concern that there will be some disjointed or whatever. But I hope that we stay together as a nation and try to work it out rather than just walk away.
Unity, I don't know. Unity is a relative thing. You know what I mean? The province has got just like the opposition. They have to have their somewhat independence, and they have to have their say about that and things they don't agree with, or push the government to give them more, like we all do. But people got to realize too that the government, the money has comes from us. So if they don't get more from us through taxes or permits or fees or whatever, they won't have the money for our public services. But we're always begging them for more public services, right?
There has to be some type of unity. Especially when it comes to health care, the federal government has basically said, well, you do this and we'll give you the money for that. But until you do this, so how can they do this if they don't have the money? You get my point.
We're now on the doorstep of the 3rd anniversary of this pandemic being declared. Many of us can remember quite vividly how things played out, like the mandatory masking or even the lockdowns. But now, with more vaccines available to us, has the threat of this virus faded with you? So we took to the streets to ask Canadians this question.
Are you still concerned about COVID-19?
Yes, I am.
For any particular reason?
Well, it seems like it's not going away. As soon as we get over one, there's another one coming behind it, and each one seems to be more contagious. So, it's certainly a concern as you get older. So, which I am.
A little bit now more as with how much the flu's been going around the past few months and everyone's been getting sick again. So definitely a little bit.
Yes. One of my friends actually just caught it, and I haven't seen him in a while, so I'm fine. But from what I heard, he's like really concerned about his health, and he's struggling, I guess. Yeah.
No, it's here. So, we're all going to have to deal with it. You can't shut everything down again. I'm glad we're open, and I know it's real, but I'm not worried about it, no.
Not overly, no.
Any particular reason?
I'm a paramedic, actually, so I've been dealing with it a lot throughout the last couple of years, and now it's more so just treated as the common cold in my respect anyways.
As you can see, I'm wearing a mask, or had one on until I stopped to talk to you. Yes. Why? Because I don't want to get sick again from it. I was in the original wave back in when it first started here in Newfoundland.
Absolutely.
Why?
Because I had it once. I got very sick, and it's a sickness just like anything else. The flu, I'm concerned about. COVID, I'm concerned about. Just a simple cold. I want to stay healthy.
I haven't had any exposure to it. I just spent 10 weeks in Africa. Didn't get COVID, didn't get malaria. I'm taking all the precautions necessary. So personally, I am not concerned about it.
No.
Why not?
I feel like we've done everything that we should have done as a community and as a country.
Of course, it's a very serious pandemic and it affected our world in more ways than one. But hopefully we can just continue getting back to our normal while still being safe.
I am.
Why?
So I regularly travel outside the country as well, even if I have to go back to India sometimes. And that concerns me a bit because of the restrictions and all those things as well.
Am I still concerned about it? I believe it's still around, but I think my fear has diminished.
I am no longer concerned about that. Maybe that comes from a place of privilege because I'm young and I don't have to worry about getting sick. But I'm ready to live my life as if COVID doesn't exist anymore.
I would like to say no. It was definitely a concern at one period of time, but the way life is working right now, I would say it's not a huge concern, but it still could be a concern. But for me personally, no, I wouldn't say it's a concern. I'll wear my mask around, like if I was in the hospital or if the bus is really packed, maybe. But besides that, I think I'm pretty comfortable with where I am.
My biggest concern, because I've had COVID now and I'm fully vaccinated, my biggest concerns, I have two. One is, am I going to transmit it to someone who is vulnerable and does need to worry about it. And the second one is because I'm living in China and I'm traveling to other countries, if I test positive, it could put a big hinder on my travels. So we're not out of the woods yet.
I mean, for myself, I'm not too worried. I'm young, able-bodied. I feel, healthy. I do have grandparents though, and so, I am worried for them.
I think I'm a little bit less worried about it now. Now that the vaccines are out and everything is kind of slowly going back to normal. I think with travel, I'm still a little bit concerned with planes and all of that. But overall, I think things are going a little bit back to normal. I've already had COVID, so I feel, I guess, a little bit more reassured.
I feel like the public health response has been adequate. I think vaccination uptake has been good. Everyone I know in my social circles is vaccinated. They've taken the proper precautions. And at this point, anyone I know who's gotten COVID has been relatively mild, thank God. So overall, I'm not too concerned at this point.
Yes, in my view, I'm still concerned about COVID-19. While I'm vaccinated, I'm not concerned about the severity, but still the contagiousness is an issue for me.
I'm still concerned. As Jack said, I'm fully vaccinated. But when I go into populated spaces, tight spaces with people close by, I take a mask.
Well, all I can say is that the stats in Ottawa came out and it was worse in the summer of 2022 as opposed to 2021. So I think it's still with us. I think we should all still be very vigilant. Please get your shots. Personal choice is personal choice. But hey, we're all in this together.
Thanks for watching this episode of Outburst on CPAC. If you have any comments about this show or any other show, you can find us on social media. You can also find us on our website at www.cpac.ca. I'm Glenn McGuinness, and on behalf of my colleagues at the Cable Public Affairs Channel, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.